Man, I don't know about you guys, but I love lifting heavy. To me, there's no greater rush than getting under some heavy ass weight and making it move, locking the rep out. That's just me personally. Everybody has their own rushes in life. Some people love running. They get a runner's high, the feeling of doing a sprint. You know, there's all different avenues we can go down that release that dopamine for us and make us really, really happy. But for me, mine has always been sheer strength and just moving crazy weight as far back as I can remember. Even in my days of bodybuilding, I remember I'd get called out for ego lifting a lot because I'd go much heavier and for much lower reps than I would need to, simply because I was addicted to moving heavy weight. To me, even though it was better for your physique, doing the reps with the slow tempos, contracting and all that, that was always really boring to me. I like the feeling of the challenge of heavy weight on you and having to force it on up, lock it on out. That was always addicting to me. And the reason I loved bodybuilders like Ronnie Coleman so much is because he was not only crazy jacked, but because he was also super, super strong. I was never into just sheer strength, like the sleeper strength, somebody who doesn't look like they lift and can still lift a whole lot. That didn't necessarily intrigue me. I always liked having the mix there. You know, I always loved what comic books portrayed. Think of any superhero. They're all incredibly jacked and they're incredibly strong for the most part. So that's what I like, that balance of both strength and size, but I really, really, really love the strength aspect. And one time I was chatting with my cousin and he goes, you know, it's funny the validation humans need. You know, you have to lift big in the gym. And I told him, you know, it got me thinking a little bit, and I told him, oddly enough, it's not a validation thing for me. I mean, I'm sure if you were to really dive deep into the human ego and the psychology of the human mind, yeah, there's some validation going on deep down. But at surface level, I actually prefer lifting heavy when no one's around. I like getting my PRs in the gym when it's empty and I don't have eyes on me. I like hitting PRs in my home gym when I don't have people watching me. I genuinely just, for me, love lifting heavy weights. So, how I got into powerlifting, the story is a little interesting. And since I'm having a deload week here and I'm not bringing you into the gym with me, I figured I might as well sit down and share a little story time with y'all. So, around 2013, and for those of you who've been watching, to give you an exact timeline, this was towards the end of 2013, the summer of 2013 into the fall. So when I had just moved back from Virginia, Max Tuning had just began his YouTube channel, I had just began dating Ariana, and I had just moved into the apartment that I had in Warwick. This is when my channel was kind of fading. The rebuild series was done and over with, and I didn't really have much going on in the channel. I was kind of doing a lot of filler videos. So at this point in time, it had been evident to me that I was done with bodybuilding. Mentally, I had checked out. I didn't know if it would be forever and for always, but at the time, the fire, the excitement, the passion for getting on stage was no longer there, and I was really, really missing and craving some athleticism that just had not been in bodybuilding. You know, at the time, I was actually contemplating getting into fighting of some sort of martial art. I always loved doing wrestling and boxing in high school, so I always wanted to get into a martial art. And I was contemplating doing that, or even switching to, like, say, Olympic lifting. Because at the time I didn't know much about powerlifting other than I thought it was just a bunch of fat guys doing 1-rep maxes. You know, not to disrespect any powerlifters, I'm just admitting, back in my bodybuilding days, I was ignorant to the sport of powerlifting, and that's all I thought it was. So I was looking maybe at Olympic lifting because I saw there was a lot of explosive movement and technique in there, and that's what I missed. I missed that athleticism that was not involved in the sport of bodybuilding. I also want to say right now, before we go any further, keep in mind, guys, I started bodybuilding and competing in bodybuilding as young as 15 years old, and I did 7 shows. So I'm not in any way hating on bodybuilding. And if any of you want to call me out on hating on bodybuilding, then I expect you to have done more shows than I have, because I'm really not trying to hate on it. I'm just being honest about sport differences here. But in bodybuilding, there's a lot of mental challenges. Obviously, the dieting is 24/7, and the dieting takes another level of discipline, probably more discipline than many sports have. I will give bodybuilding that all day long. And obviously you have to make sure your training's on point in the gym. But there's not one specific athletic activity you're going and executing in bodybuilding. You know, you basically spend all this time training, and the only time you really get to exercise and compete the actual sport is, you know, one time on stage. So I miss having a sport where you could actually go and exercise. You know, football players, you can go do a pickup game, exercise your sport. Boxing, you can spar with somebody, exercise your sport. There's a million ways to exercise what you've been training for that doesn't require you to wait 6 months for one day on stage. So I miss that. I miss that athleticism. At this time, I was actually contemplating shutting the channel down. A lot of people don't know this, but I remember talking to Max Tuning on text, telling him, like, I think I'm going to have to look for an actual job now because I'm going to have to shut down YouTube. I'm done with bodybuilding. I feel obligated to make videos because it's what I've been doing. It's what I've been living off of, but I don't want to do bodybuilding anymore. So I was thinking I was going to shut it down. The channel was dying. I felt no motivation towards it. I wasn't stressed or worried because a fun fact people don't actually know is I have a pretty solid resume built up. Mark Lobeliner actually structured the resume for me. But I was disappointed though because I love doing the YouTube thing, and I figured that I was going to have to, you know, find a different job that wasn't as fun. And suddenly it hit me one day when Johnny Candido did his response to Max Tuning, 405 deadlift for max reps. This is the video in which Johnny Candido got 19 reps on 405. That's when I had first heard of Johnny Candido and learned who he was. From there I began checking out his videos, and I saw this kid who looked like me structure-wise. You know, we're a little bit different builds obviously, but in the big picture we're both about 5'7"-ish. We both have that natural skinny boy kind of a build. He wasn't like a natural linebacker of any sort. You know, and he had very obtainable strength and obtainable physique. Like, there was nothing unrealistic about him. Basically, I was able to relate to him, is what I'm trying to say here. But I saw that his lifts were incredible, far beyond anything I'd ever done in the gym. He was squatting 500 for reps, deadlifting over 600 pounds, you know, again, all at my general size. And I was mind blown by that. So I started looking into more of who he was and what he did, and I learned obviously that he competed in powerlifting. And I started checking his stuff out, and his channel was the first time powerlifting had ever seemed relatable to me. Before that, I had never really looked into powerlifting, so all I'd really seen were quick video clips of seemingly fat guys with beards, usually in suits at that, so the suits already kind of turned me off because it was something very unrelatable. You know, and they'd be hitting these 1 rep maxes on the squat, bench, and dead with these thin, color-coded kilo plates. So it's not even like I could see how much it was. You know, 500 pounds in those thin kilo plates looks like 225 in the bar. So I had never seen powerlifting in a way that was at all relatable to me, is all I'm trying to say. It had never sparked my interest until I saw Johnny Candido, this kid who was my general build, my general age, and he was in the gym using real plates, the same 45-pound plates I use in the gym, doing the same movements I do, and he was doing it with a lot more weight. And suddenly my light bulb went on. I was like, wow, I want to do that. I've always loved heavy lifting. I want to aim to be able to, you know, to be that strong in the gym. So I started looking into more of what he did, and from there obviously I learned about other powerlifters, Brett Gibbs, etc. And I really started educating myself more on the sport of powerlifting and what really went into it. I learned how much of a technique sport powerlifting really is, which I never knew before. I basically had to relearn how to do all these different lifts just to optimize the biomechanics of my body and tap into my maximum power. So I learned that powerlifting was really a technique sport. It's a strategy sport, and most of all, it's a sport with athleticism involved that you can exercise at any different time. I can do a meet every so often. I don't have to like wait a year on end to put on size and then do a cut and all that. So that really caught my eye. Now, some people have been trying to call me out saying that I only did powerlifting because I quote-unquote failed at bodybuilding and I wasn't good enough at bodybuilding, so I went the easier route. I'm not going to sit here and defend myself, obviously. I don't have to prove myself to anybody. I've put in the work and I've earned the stripes. Bottom line is, I was doing well at bodybuilding. I don't have good genetics at all. My structure sucks. There's no denying that. But whether you like it or not, I always did my work, I came in lean, and I did well at my competitions, and I loved it. At the end of the day, I was just burnt out from it. I was no longer super interested in it anymore, and powerlifting pertained to what I always loved, which was lifting super heavy. So that's why stumbling upon Johnny's channel, seeing a relatable version of powerlifting was one of the best things that ever happened to me. So now I'm fully addicted to it. And being able to focus solely on a different sport for a while has actually made me come back around to bodybuilding a little bit more, as you've seen, bringing the shoulder work back in, just trying to make sure muscle-wise my physique is still there. And who knows, I may end up back on stage one day, but it's not going to be for another couple of years, I would imagine, as I'm pretty damn hooked into this powerlifting. So that is a little history about how I got into powerlifting, why I love it, and a little background for those of you that might be thinking I got into it for alternative motives.